Associationism is the idea that mental process operate by the association of one mental state with its successor states. It holds that all mental processes are made up of discrete psychological elements and their combinations, which are believed to be made up of sensation or a simple feeling. Although Wundt founded the first recognized psychological laboratory, associationism developed earlier as an identifiable psychological position. Many of its principles were used directly or in modified form by later schools, including Wundt and Freudian psychoanalysis. Associationism is really more a principle than a school of psychology. The first question, how do we know, was answered by associationists through the senses. And the next question, where do our complex ideas come from since they are not directly sensed? Was answered, complex ideas come from the association of simple ideas. Since associationism has its root in philosophy extended back into antiquity, however, its influence continues right up to today. Historically, associationistic concepts have served as substitute for more detailed learning theories. Aristotle suggested that items which are similar or opposite or contiguous tend to be associated with one another. The principle of contiguity won the universal acceptance in psychology. If two things are experienced closely in time, they are likely to be associated. Similarity and contrast were accepted by some and rejected by others. Thomas Hobbes declared that if an idea had previously been followed by another idea, it would tend to lead to the contiguous idea. John Locke said that all knowledge comes from experience, either through the sense or through reflection of sensory data. His idea on association were also similar to Aristotle. Locke pointed out that ideas are combined in experience according to principles very much like those of similarity and contiguity. However, his emphasis on association was not great. He believed that ideas are ordinarily tied together by natural connections, and he clearly implied that associationistic principles are useful primarily for the explanation of abnormal connection. George Berkeley stressed tactile and kinesthet- kinesthetic sensation and their association with ocular movement in looking at near and far objects. This complex association then becomes depth. Kinesthesia is the sensory system which tell you what is being done to your body and what your body doing. Kinesthesia and preperception are synonyms. The main kinesthetic sensations are those of position and movement of the body part with respect to each other and of muscle force and effort. Tactile sensation means refer to the first stage in the functioning of senses related to the effect of related to the effect of physical stimulus on touch receptor in the skin and their transduction and transmittal from the peripheral nerve system to the sensory area of the brain. David Hume made a distinction between more vivid impression and less vivid ideas. Hume reduced the principle of cause and effect to contiguity. He concluded that cause and effect were not to be found existing in things observed, but only in the mind of observer. David Hartley developed his psychology around associationism. Hartley postulated vibratory action within the nerve system corresponding to idea and image. More intense vibration were sensation and less intense vibration were ideas. Contiguity was stressed as a principle of association, and the associationistic principle was used to explain the detail of visual depth perception as well as diverse other phenomena, emotional pleasure and pain. Thomas Brown emphasized on secondary principles of association. He was concerned with the problem of the selection. In in a train of ideas of the single idea that actually occurred when there were several that might occur, he presented several factors that might account for the selection of a particular idea. The number of times it had been associated with the preceding mental content, how recently the association has previously occurred, the vividness of the original idea, its duration, and the number of other ideas which had connections with the idea and thus added to its associative strength. James Mill held that the law of association could account for the most complex mental experience. Mill said that simple ideas collapse to form more complex ones, which might through long use become so consolidated that they appeared as a single idea. Once the complex idea appeared in this way, it might in turn collapse with other idea to form even more complex idea. John Stuart Mill believed that ideas lose their original identity when they fuse into more complex idea by association. He accepted his father's notion of collapse coalescence of idea in association but believed that very rapid combination result in a loss of some part. Alexander Bain developed a well-defined set of law of association. Contiguity and similarity were the two principal then used to account for the formation of association. To him, the mind has the power to form new combination or aggregated different form and in that have been presented to it in the course of experience. According to him, the strength of association depends partly upon the consequence which followed their occurrence. Evan Pavlov developed an apparatus which made it possible to measure the amount of saliva secreted by a dog under various conditions of feeding. Pavlov's striking discovery consisted of his nothing the persistent occurrence of anticipatory salivary flow, that is, the stimuli previously associated with the feeding of the animal came to initiated salivation in animals. Edward Lee Thorndike, his mode of thinking was thoroughly associationistic. He was a functionalist in his emphasis on the utilitarian aspects of psychology. However, he could be classified as associationistic. According to him, psychology is the study of stimulus response connection. He was of the view that behavior can be analyzed into associations. He said that behavioral processes are quantifiable to him. If something exists, it must exist in some amount, and that if exists in some amount, that it can be measured. Associationistic psychologists believe that the primary job of science is to relate phenomena, to look for reliable functions and relationships. Older associationists attempt to explain complex thought and behavior as nothing but the association of ideas. Thorndike was the very prototype of this type of thinking, believing that behavior explicable on the basis of nothing but stimulus response connection, inherited and acquired.